Chapter 2, page 41. Reading. Excerpt from Lawrence Durrell's Bitter Lemons. A word to set the scene. In the 1950s, the English writer Lawrence Durrell decided to live on the Mediterranean island of Cyprus, off the coast of Greece and Turkey, for a year or two. He planned to teach and write. He wanted to buy a house in a village there and went to a Turkish real estate agent for help. Together they found a wonderful old house with great wooden doors and a wonderful view of hills, villages, and a distant castle. Durrell wanted the house very much, but didn't have much money. He needed an especially smart business person to negotiate the purchase for him from the Greek woman who owned the house. Luckily, Durrell's real estate agent, Sabri Tahir, was famous on the island for his cleverness. The following is an excerpt from Lawrence Durrell's book Bitter Lemons, about his time on Cyprus. In this scene, Durrell and Sabri Tahir are in Tahir's office. The owner of the house, a shoemaker's wife, is across the street in a cafe with many relatives who are giving her advice. The huge key to the house is on the desk in front of Tahir. How to buy a house. Sabri Tahir was perhaps 40 years of age, sturdily built, and with a fine head on his shoulders. He had the sleepy good looks, a rare smile with perfect teeth, thoughtful brown eyes, which one sees sometimes in Turkish travel posters. "They are all here," he hissed. He pointed to the cafe across the road where the cobbler had gathered his family. They sat on a semicircle of chairs, sipping coffee and arguing in low voices. "Now, whatever happens," said Sabri in a low voice, "do not surprise. You must never surprise. And you don't want the house at all, see?" I repeated the words. "I don't want the house. I absolutely don't want the house." Yet in my mind's eye I could see those great doors. "God," Sabri had said, "this is fine wood, from Anatolia. In the old days they floated the great timbers over the water behind boats. This is Anatolian timber. It will last forever." "I don't want the house," I repeated under my breath. The woman walked boldly across the road, entering with a loud "Good morning." She wore the white headdress and dark skirt of the village woman. Sabri cleared his throat, and picking up the great key very delicately between finger and thumb, put it down again on the edge of the desk nearest her. "We are speaking about your house," he said softly. "Do you know that all the wood is—" He suddenly shouted the last word with such force that I nearly fell off my chair. "Rotten!" And picking up the key, he banged it down to emphasize the point. The woman threw up her head, and taking up the key also banged it down, exclaiming, "It is not!" "It is!" Sabri banged the key. "It is not!" She banged it back. "It is!" A bang. "It is not!" A counter-bang. All this was not on a very high intellectual level. I also feared that the key itself would be banged out of shape so that finally none of us would be able to get into the house. The woman now took the key and held it up as if she were swearing by it. "The house is a good house," she cried. Then she put it back on the desk. Sabri took it up thoughtfully. "And suppose we wanted the house," he said, "which we don't. What would you ask for it?" £800. Sabri gave a long laugh, wiping away imaginary tears, and repeating £800 as if it were the best joke in the world. He laughed at me, and I laughed at him, a dreadful false laugh. We laughed until we were exhausted. Then we grew serious again. Sabri was still fresh as a daisy, I could see that. He had put himself into the patient state of mind of a chess player. Then he suddenly turned to her. £200 and not a piastre more. She turned back to Sabri and, banging the key down once more, shouted, 600! I offer you £200. She let out a yell. No, never in this life! My friend leaned back in his chair. Think of it, he said, his voice full of the poetry of commerce. This gentleman will write you a check. You will go to the bank. They will open the safe. They will take from it notes, thick notes, as thick as a honeycomb, as thick as salami. Here they both licked their lips, and I myself began to feel hungry at the thought of so much edible money. All you have to do is agree.